to let you know that there is something better for you. Yes, you. Who, me? Yes, you. I know you feel like you are getting hit from all different angles. The uncertainty of life, the unpredictability of job stability and finances and health and folks dying and folks lying, honey. But I want you to know that there is something better for you. But you have to be open to the possibilities. Possibilities. The word impossible, if you break it up, is I'm possible. There is something better for you. Now, let me explain it to you like this. Your job is something you get paid for. Your calling is something that you are made for. Come through, Les Brown. Oftentimes, we feel a sense of defeat, delusionment, pity, despair, all of these things because we confuse the two. Once again, your job is what you get paid for. Your calling is what you are made for. And in the middle of all of this stuff, sometimes you just have to get still, sit still, and say, God, I am available to you. I tossed and turned all night long. I just couldn't rest. And you already know, I recently buried, or my Uncle Mikey. He's no longer with me. And every time I wake up, I can hear Ronnie in our phone conversation. And she said, Dee Dee, Mikey died. And it's like a pit in my stomach, like you're on a roller coaster at the top of the roller coaster, and the roller coaster drops, and it's like your stomach goes to your mouth. So that's a part of bereavement, and I have to accept that. But I also have to remember that there is something better for me. Helen Keller was born blind, and she could not talk. But she went on to do some amazing things. And she said, when one door closes, another door opens. But most people spend time being depressed, being angry, anxious, worried about, and traumatized by the closed door. They don't see an open door. Now, if that's you, it's okay. It happens to us all of us. From the head to the top, honey, from the rooter to the tutor, as they would say. But I'm going to invite you to believe that, just to believe there is something better for me. There is something better for me. There is something better for me. Now, in order to see that something better for you, you have to actively, not just say it, but you have to be prepared for it. You know, you have to get up. You have to brush your teeth, get in the shower. And don't just get in the shower and put your sleep clothes back on, honey. I know what that's like. But get in the shower, put your face on, put your clothes on, and sit at the table. Don't eat breakfast in bed. I've been guilty of that, and then I go straight back to bed. But there is something more important for you. There's something special for you. Les Brown was sharing a story recently. I am reading his book called It Is Not Over Until You Win. I've had that book since 2001. In fact, he signed that book for me. But it's such a blessing to go back and to revisit the pages of his life and to glean and to get the understanding of this professional man who is international. He's a motivational speaker par excellence. One day he was told that he was educable, mentally retarded, and put back a grade. Labels, they have a way of hitting us right where it hurts, right? But, as Mr. Washington told him, don't you ever say that again. Somebody's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. And so when you think in terms of that, opinions are just opinions. Opinions don't pay your bills, honey. Because if they did, honey, I would be debt free today. Okay? But Les Brown was sharing in the book that he lost his job in radio. And he was devastated because that was his superpower. You know, your superpower is that thing that you can do in your sleep. Your superpower is that thing that everybody knows that you can do it. You know that you can do that thing. You know that you can sew. You know that you can count. You know that you can speak to people. And I understood that because at one time as a radio personality, I went into work and the supervisor came in the room while I'm on the air. And he said to me, Dolores, we had to move you. Now, he was moving my shift. Nobody had consulted with me. And when I asked to move to the morning drive, he said, oh, we've already filled that position. So I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, well, why can't I keep the afternoon drive? I'm a new mom. I need to pick my son up. I can't do 7 to 11. He said, well, I'm going to do your shift and you move to 11 to 7 to 11. When he closed that door, I did the only thing I knew to do. I said, okay, God, what's next for me? What's next for me? That was like my superpower. Well, what was next for Les Brown is he knew he still had to put food on the table. So what he decided to do eventually after his pity party, a friend of him offered him a job to cut grass. Yes, honey, cut grass. Now, some people will say, I'm not going from radio to cutting grass. Well, he did. And he cut that grass and he said people would drive by and say, hey, girlfriend, isn't that Les Brown, Mamie Brown's baby boy, the one that's on the radio? Girl, honey, he's cutting my grass. Is he, girl? He better do a good job. So can you imagine the amount of humiliation? But even in cutting that grass, Les Brown said to himself, there is something better for me out here. Well, one day as he was cutting that grass, and he was doing an excellent job at it, because sometimes when things change, you have the ability to pick up a new skill. But most importantly, you get to build and strengthen your comeback power. You have to build your comeback power because there are going to be moments when what you wanted to happen doesn't happen. And what you thought would last a lifetime actually ends suddenly. But that's not the end of the story. So in the case with Les Brown, one day he's out there, he's cutting the grass, and a man named Jim Irvin drove by and saw Les. And Jim said, that cannot be Les Brown. This is not the Les Brown that we know, the #1 radio personality here in Ohio. No, this isn't Les Brown. Well, Jim Irvin circled the block, and indeed it was Les Brown. Now, Jim Irvin owned a company called From Communication Workers of America. It was an organization. And he stopped and he said, Les, what are you doing out here? He said, I'm cutting grass. He said, why are you cutting grass? He said, well, this is the job that I can do right now. I have to take care of my family. He says, you know what, Les? I'm going to offer you a job right there in the yard with that lawnmower. He said, Les, I want you to come and work for me. And so Les became an organizer for Jim Irvin. See, he knew that there was something better for him. He knew it. But he had to be visible. It's so easy, y'all. It's so easy to just bury our heads under the cover and say, I'm not going any further. Can I get an amen? I'll amen myself on this one. And one thing led to another, because you have to stay visible. You can't just stay in that moment. Like that man isn't going to find you in your house. And let's go beyond relationships, because sometimes there's such an emphasis on relationships that we think the correct relationship is going to take us to where we're supposed to be. And that is not so. When God made you, you were complete and whole. And then the world around you start happening. You can build that business without a boo. You can start that company without anybody. So stop believing the hype that with the right man or the right woman, you can do this thing. Sometimes you could just have to do it and do it and do it and do it until you're satisfied. And what I have learned, and I'm continuing to listen to people who are at the top and now they have the person that they're equally yoked to, they weren't focused on a relationship. They were focused on their calling. And they got busy. And in the midst of getting busy, They went to events and workshops. In fact, they stopped focusing on relationships. Next thing you know, they got more than they could have ever hoped for. Why? Because they were on point. So in the case with myself, one day I had to make a decision. I'm a new mother. My son is too young for me to work from 7 to 11. I already had issues at home. I didn't want to add anything else. I said, okay, God, what's next? He said, you're going to go back to graduate school. I said, okay. The first time you started working on your Master's of Divinity and you got really, really sick and I told you to come out of there, you trusted me, and then you found out you were pregnant and you had the worst morning sickness ever. So had you stayed in school, you would have failed. But I am not a God that's going to set you up to fail. So what are you going to do? You're going to go back to school. I said, okay. Well, let me find out what I'm going to get my master's degree in. And when I read the description of a master's of social work, which was helping people, connecting people, building people, I know that as a part of my calling. I said, well, let me get this master's in social work. And my journey began. I moved in the middle of my social work program, graduate school. I had my son on the weekends sometimes. I had my son on my lap as I was writing. I was going to class on the weekends. I was going to class when it wasn't convenient. But I was still doing what God told me to do. Go back to school, Dolores, get your master's degree. Because when one door closes, or there's the end of a thing, it's the beginning of something new. But you have to be willing to release it. And I remember just sitting in class. And let me tell y'all something. I was so still stuck with my radio vision, or the fact that I'm larger than life, which there's nothing wrong with that, that my two colleagues, Yolanda and Paulette, they talk about the first day I came in the class for our graduate program. And I had these, what they call pictures, pictures that celebrities give out and they sign their names. Well, I wasn't going to let those pictures go to waste. So I took the pictures out and I signed various positive messages to each person. And I handed the pictures out to them. And I signed it Dolores Jones, the Drive Time Diva. And we laughed about that because they were like, girl, the first time you walked in class, you took out your pictures. We didn't even know who you were, but you put something positive on those pictures and you handed them to each and every one of us because it was still in me. Your job is what you get paid to do. Your calling is what you are called to do. And you will do it even in a graduate class. Baby, you will do it even in the line making French fries at McDonald's. Baby, you will do it even working part-time at Sally's like I was when I met one of the TV personalities for Better Kansas City. And we got to talking and I got to sharing and she was intrigued. I said, oh yeah, I have a book called Stop the Dumb Stuff. Well, let me hear about it more. I just like your conversation. You got to be visible. So here I am going through graduate school. We're laughing. I'm building other relationships. I'm connecting to another community that I did not even know existed. And before long, I graduated with my Master's of Social Work. And next thing you know, I was placed in a position to work as a counselor and a coach for a transitional living program. And usually those type of internships or practicums are for free, but not for me. One of my professors said, Dolores, you have too much to offer to show up there for free. You're going to name your price. You're going to tell them that you will give them 20 hours a week for $28,000 a year. I am? She said, yes, you are. And I did as I was told. Because sometimes you got to believe and use somebody else's belief in you when you can't find that extra push that you need. And next thing you know, here I am, I'm working part-time, 20 hours a week, still doing graduate school, $28,000, and I bought my first house and my first convertible. It was like a whirlwind, but I was still willing to show up. I had to be visible. I went to school, I went to class, I went to the practicum, and what people didn't know is in the midst of that, I thought I was going to have to move into the transitional living program. Why? Because a friend of mine, their family wanted their house back. And so I had to move. And I didn't see it coming, like some of you. But I was still busy building. See, in the midst of all of that uncertainty, I was in graduate school. I was taking a first-time homebuyers program. Why? Because I had a vision. I wanted to be a homeowner. But you have to take that goal, you have to place it in front of you. And then you have to write down 1, 2, 3, or 4 steps of what else you need to do, those small steps to get to the big picture. So with all that uncertainty, I wasn't somewhere singing since I lost my baby and I can't believe I'm going through this. Baby, I got my food stamps. I kept smiling. I kept moving. And by the time I graduated, listen, y'all, I had a house, a convertible. I had a home, a big, beautiful home with 3 bedrooms, 3 levels. It was amazing. And I was rolling in my convertible. And then one day I looked and one of my professors was rolling in the same type of convertible. I said, God, okay, if I hang with you, you'll take me to places I never even thought were possible. Because there is something wonderful waiting out there for you. And y'all know the rest of the story. I graduated, and next thing you know, at that same university, they had a national public radio station. I got wind of that. I went and applied for it, got that job too. And then I eventually got a job in social work as a family-centered case manager for those living with HIV and AIDS. And from there, I got a job as a part-time college instructor and then eventually became a college professor. And I was just going on and on and on and on. And it was getting better and better and gooder and sweeter than the day before. Now I can do that. Now I can reflect on that memory. And I need to use those memories just like you do for when times get hard and you want to throw in the towel. I don't blame you. But what happens when you get your towel thrown back at you? Like right now, this morning, you're listening to me, right? I just threw your towel back at you and I said, get up and get busy. Get up and get busy. Even if it's one thing, if you can do that one thing, just one little thing can make the difference. Small victories, honey, small victories. And maybe for you today, the victory is just to get out of bed. Been there, done that, got a t-shirt. And some shoes. Maybe that's it. Maybe the one thing is just to get in the shower and cry. Let the water hit you. Let the water just soothe your achy body. And just cry and let it out. Last night, I felt like I was going to throw up. I said, Lord, I'm going to vomit. You know why I wanted to vomit? I wanted to vomit because I knew I was settling or I couldn't find my way. See, there are those people who make things happen, and there are those people who don't know what's happening. And then there are those people who know what to do. And then there are those people who are still trying to figure it out. And at different levels and stages of your life, you may find yourself on either side of that. And I kept saying, God, well, why can't I just seem to sit my happy butt down and create my online course and all this other stuff? And I just couldn't understand it. And I started writing down the names of all these people who had believed in me, but they just couldn't carry me. There are people who believe you, but they can't carry you. And if you're carrying somebody else, you need to let them go because you can't carry them either. So I was like, I was up at 1:30 this morning and I started reading and I got my journal because there was something that Les Brown talked about that hit me like a ton of bricks. He said that you have to deal with your hurt. You have to recognize that you were disappointed. You have to heal those places. See, you can be erratic and make another move and then another move, and then you're not showing up. And I'm so guilty of that. I was like, let's do this. Let's make a book. Let's do that. Let me do this. Let me do this. And I had all these great ideas, and then I just didn't follow through. And people would see me. And one day, one of my sister friends, she said, Dolores, and I quote, "You are a beautiful disaster." And I thought, excuse me? What she was saying is, you have so much, honey, but you're so distracted. And everything you touch is not working. It becomes a disaster. Now, don't get me wrong. She's like, you got to get it together. You got to pull it together. Well, this morning as I was writing in my journal, And I filled up several pages. I said, God, I've been wounded and it hurt. I've been hurt. I've been hit on every side, from the wrong relationship choices to not showing up at work and doing a half blank job and all these other things. And then my uncle died after so many other people I loved passed away. And I work in hospice, Lord. I mean, can I really go in there today and do this job? Let me know. So, well, when you're willing to do what you don't want to do, when you're willing to do what you must do, then you put yourself in a position to do what you want to do, Dolores. So you work 3 days a week, 24 hours a week. You have 4 days off. They gave you the amount of money you asked for per hour. Don't walk away from that. Just sit back and understand that there is something better for you. And then deal with your hurt. Call your therapist. And don't stop talking to her when things get better. Keep talking. Pray. Work through it. Find your bread and butter people. You're like, who are the bread and butter people? The bread and butter people are the people that you can count on. The bread and butter people are the people that if you run out of gas and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you can call them and they'll say, where are you? I'm coming to get you. But the other people say, girl, do you know what time it is? Listen, honey, do you got AAA? Your bread and butter people have believed in you from day one. Your bread and butter. But here's the thing, honey. You got to put the meat on the bread, honey. You got to put the meat on the bread. And you are equipped to do that. In closing, don't ignore your hurt. I have let myself down. I let myself down after I bought my house. Now, y'all hear my heart today. I let myself down after I bought that house and I was doing great. And then I let a man in my life that wasn't supposed to be there. And I went against my better judgment, even with warning signs and red flags in my face. And I stopped paying attention. And the $5,000 credit card, I keep thinking about that. Lord, when I got that house, they sent me a $5,000 credit card. I had never had a credit limit of $5,000. I was so excited. But I said, you need to put this up in a shoebox in the closet because this is not for you to go shopping. And I did that thing for 4 years. I never touched it. And then I got married. And then he said we needed a different house because he didn't want the house that I already had. And what was I doing? I was accommodating somebody else when God was already taking care of me. And so I took that $5,000 credit card and I put furniture on it. Not for my house, but for the other house. I put furniture on it. Then I put some other things. And next thing you know, I was in a world of debt. And I stopped making smart financial decisions. And next thing you know, I was fighting this in a fight with this man. I was confused. I was broken, but I was still moving. And eventually I moved back home to my house, but I hadn't recovered. And so sometimes when you don't give yourself time to recover and to sit down and work through it with somebody that can help you process it in a non-judgmental, safe environment, then you'll just keep making decisions and you'll think you're going somewhere, but you're going somewhere nowhere fast. You're like a gerbil. The wheel is turning, but you ain't there. But I want you to know, it's okay. It's okay to stop. It's okay to take a deep breath. It's okay to say, God, oh my God, that hurt me too. Oh my God, I was in a marriage where a man choked me, God, and I didn't even talk about it. I just kept going. They don't disappear. You have to stop and take inventory and say, God, here I am. Here I am with my broken heart. with my wounded spirit. Here I am, God. I want to be everything that you want me to be. But I can't see it because I'm so busy not wanting to deal with my stuff. And if that's you, it's okay. I got tears in my eyes right now. You know why? Because sometimes it's hard to tell yourself the truth. But the word, the book of life says you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. God's word has always been my truth. And in his truth, in that word, I've been able to be honest with myself. Here I am. Here you are, January 26th of 2021. Today, you can start being honest with yourself. Today, you can be honest with yourself. Get your journal out and just write and write and write. That's all for today. Just get your journal out and write. Coming up, I will do a video about how to redirect your life. You have to be willing to do the work. Just having a college degree isn't going to do it. Just having a nice house isn't going to do it. You got to do the work. But you don't have to do the work alone. I'm Dolores Jones, your comeback coach. I want to see you win. In fact, I know you're going to win because there is something better for you. Believe it, accept it, celebrate it, acknowledge it, and get with it. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.